Testament Apocrypha too, books that didn't get into the New Testament canon. That's a whole other process. We're talking about Old Testament Apocrypha. Anyway, let's move along. So, I think that the key here is the rededication of the temple, the whole Jewish concern for the temple, and that's going to move down into the Christian event. Jesus, as portrayed in Scripture, particularly the Gospel of John, if you haven't know your Scripture here, when Jesus goes into the temple to so-called purify it, he says, "Zeal for my Father's house consumed me," or something like that, quoting a psalm. I think it's Psalm 109, or I don't know what psalm I did down it. One of those up in the 90s or 100. And if you look at that psalm, unfortunately, it's a totally Zionistic psalm, but the passage, one taken out of context, is often the way proof texts are done in the way these documents are put together, without looking at the ambience from what it's taken. What I mean Zionist, it's all about rebuilding Jerusalem, rebuilding the temple. I'd have to show you the rest. So when you see a proof text, just don't read the proof text. Because what a lot of people have done is rip that text out of context and not paid attention to the context in the original document. They just wanted the word to add to their storyline. But they didn't want to look at what it actually meant in its original environment. Their hair would have stood up on their head. And they would have been like shocked. But often when you get a proof text, go look at the original context always. And it's very edifying. I do it in all my books. I can pick it out now, but I don't have my Bible with me. It would take me too long to do. But if you want, next time, if you bring a book with the Psalms, I can look and find that one, "Zeal for my Father's house," famous quote. In any case, Jesus is being portrayed there as a zealot, which is the name of one of the political movements that fought against Rome. He has zealots in his teaching entourage, someone called Simon Zelotes, Simon the Zealot. These are political, religious denominations of people involved in the freedom struggle against Rome and so on. It's something I will clarify as we go on. But the whole point of what the Maccabees did in the rededication of the temple was purify. So Jesus is also involved in a repurification of the temple. The whole issue was on purity from the Maccabean period down to the Christian. And we know that particularly in the Dead Sea Scrolls, because now we found documents that were deposited along the Dead Sea, somewhere between the 1st century BC and the 1st century AD. Certainly probably in the wake of the war against Rome, which is a crucial turning point. So you should always know that date. These are two different ways of referring to dates. People who want to be polite say CE, because they don't want to hurt anyone's religious sensibilities, because some people don't believe in something. This is AD, means literally Anno Domini, year of our Lord. So since some people say, well, it's not our Lord, then that date upsets. So then the PC people will say CE, which means common error, which sometimes you could say of as common error, I suppose, in any case. I usually mix them up, because I don't like BCE. I think that's too clumsy. So in my work, I like just two letters anyway. I usually put BC and CE, though. The real sticklers put BCE and CE or BC and AD. I often go back and forth between AD and CE, but when I write, I usually put just so to be, not have problems. I put CE, but I also put BC, because I think BCE is just too much. I don't want to go that far. I mix them up, just for fun, because I like to be orderly. In any case, not that it matters what I do necessarily, except for people think it does. So that's a crucial, pivotal moment, and you should remember those dates. The temple fell in 70 AD, 35 or 40 years after Jesus' death, as it's portrayed in the Gospel. The war went on for 4 years. If you want to read about it, Josephus documents it in the Jewish War. He calls it the Jewish War because he wants to compare the new generals who are going to become Roman emperors after they clear away the old Julio-Claudia dynasty. What's the name of the new dynasty that's going to come into control in the middle of the war against the Jews? The Flavian dynasty. Who's the founder of the Flavian dynasty? opposed to Julio Claudius. Vespasian, the general from Palestine who is besieging the temple, and his son Titus, who he leaves in control, after whose name the Arch of Titus in Rome is known. So Titus comes back to Rome with prisoners, with the triumph, and builds the arch that's still there today, and has the portrait on it of what happened in Jerusalem in 70 AD. Including the candelabra that stood in the front of the temple when you went in. Golden candelabra that some people think is still hiding somewhere in the cellar of the Vatican, though I'm sure it was melted down a long time ago. But the conspiracy theorists are sure everything's still there. In some secret hiding place. Whether they are or not, I will never be able to find out, and I really don't care. But the point is, this is a new dynasty, and it has to do with why Josephus, as I told you last time, is called Josephus, Flavius. Because for services rendered, primarily the Jewish war, praising the acts of this military family, who were the conquerors of Jerusalem, who had previously been generals in Britain, who started a new dynasty when Nero was assassinated in 68 AD and defeated a group of other generals in a civil war, a mini civil war that occurs in 68 and 69, before the siege of Jerusalem resumes in 69 and Jerusalem falls in 70. So Jerusalem is in the midst of these events in the turnover of the Roman dynasties, and so is Josephus, who in documenting these things and proclaiming Vespasian the ruler that was going to come out of the world, out of Palestine to rule the world. That's how he survived. He says it in the Jewish war. Claims Vespasian the Messiah. Christian documents proclaim there Jesus as the Messiah. He's the one that's going to come out of Palestine to rule the world, not Vespasian. So you see, this was in everyone's mind at the time. The prophecy is from Numbers. I think it's 24:17. A star will rise out of Jacob, a scepter to rule the world. A star will rise out of Jacob, a scepter to rule the world. That's the prophecy that they were all responding to. We find in the Dead Sea Scrolls in 3 or 4 different contexts. So it was all on their minds. They were all interested in it. The Roman Empire started a new dynasty, to some extent on its basis. Josephus published his book, The Jewish War, where he documents this. Why is he called the Jewish War? He's comparing the Romans and the Vespasian Titus family to Julius Caesar that started the previous dynasty. He wrote books called The Gallic War and the Civil War, documenting his military exploits.